14th. Please stand for our invocation led by Pastor W.A. James, Grace and Truth Christian Fellowship Church, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
May we pray. Our Father, our God, our Lord, our Savior. Once again, we say thank you for all things that thou hast so richly given us to enjoy. In the multitude of counselors, there is safety. We thank you for this governing body, mayor, councilmen, councilwomen, and all the administrative staff that make up this great city. We pray now that you will continue to keep us with that keeping care, continue to bless us spiritually, physically, and financially, abundantly above all that we may ask or think. This is another blessing we pray in Christ Jesus. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, President Manzi,
Here.
Vice President Small,
Here.
Councilmember Richardson, Councilmember Williams, Councilmember Daves.
Here.
Councilmember Rich.
Here.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Statement of rules.
Good morning.
Morning.
The rules of this particular meeting are as follows. We first would ask that you would silence or turn off all of your electronic devices. Any person desiring to address the council must sign in indicating the resolution, ordinance, appeal, or public hearing agenda item before entering the meeting. When addressing the council, we ask that you clearly state for the record both your name and address. Any person desiring to speak to the council on a non-agenda item must first contact the city clerk's office on the Thursday preceding the Tuesday in which you'd like to speak by 2 p.m. Your subject matter must be pertinent to City of Mobile business. Any person who hadn't given that proper notice won't be allowed to address the council. All speakers are granted 5 minutes. A bell will sound to indicate the end of 4 minutes. 1 minute will remain for summarizing. The second bell indicates that all of your time has elapsed. When addressing the council, there is to be no personal address to any individual council member. All statements, inquiries ought to be made to myself, who serves as chair, and any council member who wishes to be recognized and to respond will have that opportunity. To maintain decorum, there will be no undue applause and/or public outcry allowed. We know that there are a couple items on the agenda that there's divergence of opinion, so we will be enforcing that rule. To maintain decorum, there will be no undue applause and/or public outcry allowed. Those are our rules, and we certainly appreciate your interest in your municipal government.
Approval of minutes of November 5th.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Communication from the Mayor's Office.
Mr. President, the mayor sends his greetings and hopes to be back with you as soon as he can be. He would like these remarks to yield to Public Safety Director Barber, with your permission.
No problem.
Mr. President, first and foremost, have Chief Lamy come up, Firefighter of the Month.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, I say this every time. I greatly appreciate y'all taking a few minutes to let us recognize one of our own. Today we're going to recognize Brenda Moses. Now, the interesting thing about Brenda is she works for the Bureau of Fire Prevention. And they're not the ones that actually are responding to the calls each and every day, but their mission is critical to the safety of our citizens. And there's something that I can highlight for you that's very sad, but we've got 2 deaths this year, 2 citizens that have died due to firefighting a fire, okay? And this bureau focuses their efforts each and every day on trying to make that number of zero. We would all agree that 1 is too many. We have had 2 so far this year. In Alabama, there's been 68 so far. So this division, under the leadership of Chief Morris here, who's here today, works each and every day trying to work on, they focus on 3 things: engineering, which has to do with how the plans are designed and the code that you guys approve. 2, they focus on enforcement, which is the division that she's in, and they go out and make sure that these things are actually complete and the buildings are up to code and in compliance so that we don't have any fire fatalities. And then education, that's another component that we do each and every day. So I'd like to just read this to you here and recognize her efforts that make that possible. But fire driver Brenda Moses is an inspector with the Bureau of Fire Prevention Division of the Mobile Rescue Department. She consistently shows herself to be an outstanding employee and asset to this division. She has been a key figure in creating ways of bringing safety measures to the business community. She has worked with companies such as White and Spring Hill College, and in both cases she has brought about a positive resolve to a situation that was filled with potential disaster, destruction, and devastation at the project's onset. In many cases, she is able to work on these large projects, making sure that the business owners and the public were satisfied and they were brought into safety compliance. It is no doubt that Inspector Moses' relentless effort has made this city a city. Now, therefore, on behalf of all the citizens and with our sincere thanks, we are pleased to award a certificate of recognition to her as Firefighter of the Month for October 2019. Thank you. Appreciate you, sir. Again, thank you all very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Laura Engel is handing out in the spirit of making sure that we're being providing as much information during the new annexation effort to the city council. There's been a lot of concern of how this impacts public safety throughout the city and what type of impact it would have, what availability of grants are actually out there, and we kind of discussed in general without providing the exact documentation. So the booklet I've handed out to you under the first tab would answer the question of why the annexation effort has to be completed before the end of the year. And if you can see there, Scott Kearney in the supporting documentation from the Bureau itself, from the Census Bureau, is attached or with that document from Scott Kearney, that they will set boundary and annexation survey for the city of Mobile has completed before January the 1st of 2020. And that will align the city's boundaries as they exist at that time, which is what the Census Bureau will then go by when they determine the population of the city of Mobile. And those documents from the Census Bureau, again, are closed therein. The second tab that you will be looking at is the COPS hiring.
Chief, I didn't get one of the books. I'm sorry. Mr. Reverend Mancy stole my book.
Okay.
Thou shalt not steal.
We can take that report after council.
Citizens arrest.
The second tab and within this binder is the COPS hiring grant, which I think y'all are familiar with. And this allows us to hire police officers, full salary and benefits paid by the federal government for a 3-year term, with the 4th year being assumed by the city of Mobile. Currently, we are now hiring up to 15 officers under that particular grant. Moving the city above 200,000 would put us in a size or mid-agency category, which would allow us to hire up to 30 police officers, and I will get to that as well. We have attached the DOJ documents that if you can, for your review, so that it's not just a statement made by me. But if you look at the bottom of the second page, which would have been page 51 of the DOJ grant program, you will see that small agencies are considered populations of 200,000 or less. Eligibility for number of officers is 1 to 15. Or have y'all caught up with me? It's immediately behind the summary page of 2.
Tab 2, okay.
Page 51.
We provided the link to the Department of Justice program grant program also on that summary page so that you can verify anything that we're saying. Behind that summary page is an excerpt from the DOJ Justice Programs. At the bottom of that, it shows where the eligibilities of the cities come in. The first one being small agencies, which are considered populations of 200,000 or less, 1 to 15 officers. And then you can see the mid-size agencies, populations of 200,000 up to 1 million, which is 15 to 10 officers paid for under the grant annually, again for a 3-year period, which validates where we said that over the next 3 years, we could hire an additional 45 officers under this. Again, we are in a category of cities that right now we are eligible for grants that are equivalent to Decatur, Madison, or Dothan, whereas we would be eligible for grants with the size cities of Fort Worth, San Francisco, Jacksonville, and so it puts us in a totally different category. Yes, sir.
Mr. Director, is this specific to this one grant?
Yes, sir. That is
Just this one grant, these eligibility requirements?
Yes, sir. That is the COPS hiring grant. When you remember the PowerPoint presentation that I put on that we could hire an additional 45 police officers over the next 3 years, that would be the grant that we would hire those police officers under. And again, that's the salaries and benefits of up to 45 officers over the next 3 years, in addition to what we already receive. Under tab 3, it has BWC grant, which is the body-worn camera grant. And you have the summary page, again, with the reference link back to the DOJ grant program documents. If you look behind that summary page, you'll see an excerpt from the DOJ grant program. It's page 22 of the DOJ grant program. And at the bottom of it, you can see where small agencies with populations less than 200,000 are eligible for $400,000 under the body-worn camera grant. Mid-size agencies, again, cities of 200,000 to 1 million in population, are eligible for $2 million. So $1.6 million in addition to what we currently receive for or eligible for as far as body cameras go. If you move on to the next tab, which is labeled the JAG grant, again, you have the summary page for the 2020 JAG grants with the link, again, to the DOJ grant program so that you may verify what we are seeing. But this is the Burn Justice Assistance Grant. And again, that grant is delved out to departments based on the population size as well as the UCR crime or violent crime. And again, the population continues to be the main theme with the DOJ grants. And so this would provide for additional police equipment that could be used in public safety. The next tab is grant ranking. And what I wanted to, there was a question that was brought up to me that, even though we are eligible for these grants, a considerable amount of money, another $8.5 million in eligibility over the next 3 years, what is our capacity to actually compete with cities like San Francisco, Fort Worth, and Jacksonville and be successful in actually receiving these grants? And so DOJ actually ranks grant applications that are submitted throughout the country, and those rankings determine the amount of the award or whether or not you even get the award. And this answers specifically to a question raised by Councilman Richardson concerning Birmingham. But if you look behind that summary page, and you'll see that ranking, which has been sorted by the highest scores. The score being on the far right column, in the agency names, or certainly there in the middle. The Mobile Police Department, out of over 1,100 cities that applied for the COPS grant, the hiring grant, ranked number 3 in the country. So we have outscored every city, including the large cities, as far as our grant application capacity is able. And that's why we've been so successful in getting these grants historically, which was pointed out by Councilman Richardson, with nearly $10 million worth of grants in the fiscal year 2019. This would nearly double our efforts in the COPS hiring program. And if you want to notice, you'll notice that Birmingham is not listed in the 1,100. You cannot get a grant if you don't apply for it. And so I don't know if that's the case, but they are not in this ranking of cities. But only Kansas City Board of Police Commissioners in Chicago ranked higher than Mobile in the country. And so I point that out as evidence that we have the finest grant writing department in the country. And so eligibility, one thing,
Or the
our
finest police
ability.
department.
Pardon me?
Or the finest police department.
Finest police department as well as fire department, guns and hoses, right? The next is just evidence of grant awards, that these are not just pie-in-the-sky options, and you can see where we've consistently been able to get the COPS hiring grant. There's the 2017, which is the ranking you just saw. We were able to hire 15 officers. Had we been in a different category, we could have hired up to 30 officers. And again, the JAG grant that I just mentioned, and you can see the award documentation behind that from the U.S. Department of Justice. I also point out the SAKI grant, which is the next tab. SAKI stands for Sexual Assault Kit Initiative. And the significance of this, again showing our capacity for grant writing, is that the Mobile, Alabama is the only city in the country that has been awarded this grant for 5 years in a row. And so, again, it speaks very highly of our capability of actually getting these grants that we will now be eligible for. After that, you'll tab to the previous annexation effort, and that will show you the previous annexation efforts by the City of Mobile in 2007 and 2008. And that map is included herewith. In the very last tab is the annexation area proposed by the City of Mobile currently, which would then drive the population of the City of Mobile to an estimated 205,000, and again, placing us in the category of mid-sized agencies, making us again eligible for about $8.5 million extra in grants over the next 3 years. And we offer those to you with the links, verifying links, and I'll answer any questions you may have in regards to public safety, but just to show you the tremendous impact the annexation effort could have on the safety of the public within the entire city of Mobile.
Thank you.
Any questions or commentary after hearing that from our Public Safety Director, Bob? I have one general question. What numbers are you all using to get us over the 200,000 citizen threshold? Is it the 189,570 or the 192,085? Which numbers?
The number we're using is the 2017 updated census estimate, which was the 192,000 number. The other one, GIS chose that one as being probably the most accurate that they use. In the annexed area, we used, again, the same census estimates to determine how many more additional people would come into the city.
Have the 2018 numbers been released to your knowledge?
Not from the U.S. Census Bureau. That is a different, it is part of the Census Bureau, but there is a 2018 estimate that the City of Mobile is at 189,000. It is not the one that we used in our calculation, but even at 189,000, the annexed area would actually take us over the 200,000 population, our estimation, plus with a good solid census count based on our boundaries.
The deadline of December 31st is not necessarily a deadline on the county because the county would not have commenced. The deadline is your boundaries. You need to have all of your geographic boundaries sorted out and codified before the end of the year.
Correct. This is the BAA survey, which is the Census Bureau, under tab 1. We provide those documents. Require us to have set our boundaries, or the boundary annexation survey, before we are locked in on January the 1st of 2020 is what locks us in. And so that answers the question, why do we need to proceed this year in order to set the new boundaries for the City of Mobile for the upcoming census count?
So it's just hypothetically, there is a possibility that we could go with if it's set on the boundaries and they start the count for the 2020 census with an uptick in response from citizens, hopefully cutting down some of the 29% that the Census Bureau said to us didn't respond. If we get an uptick in responses, the potentiality is there to reach that 200,000 from those who didn't respond 10 years ago.
Again, you're asking me a hypothetical?
Right.
Hypothetically?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. What we want to ensure is that we don't, understand that if we do not hit this mark, and we don't have our boundaries set in order to hit the mark by January the 1st of 2020, we are stuck with those boundaries in that population count for the next 10 years. And so it's imperative that we not only just try to inch over it, that we make sure that we actually are successful in putting us into the mid-sized category of cities. But I can't think of another decision that's a single most important decision for the benefit of public safety than getting that population count up.
Any further questions for Public Safety Director Bob?
My last comment, President, is, Mr. President, is the City of Mobile Police Department is tasked with policing 270,000 people right now. We are only getting credit for policing 192,000 people, which again has cut, like the cops hiring grant, in half as far as our capacity or eligibility for federal funding.
If I could comment, or just make a statement. You know, every time I go out, airport in Schillingers, and I see the big station we have out there, which is a combined station, I know that we already have the infrastructure in place. And you are taking care of population regardless. So to get them in the corp limits for exactly the reasons this booklet outlines is a very smart move. So I thank you for articulating that and going over those figures with us today. Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. And again, to make sure that you have the proper information, there's been a lot of misinformation, I think, put out. And so we're trying to make sure that we're staying as accurate and transparent and really communicate the incredible opportunity we have to improve the safety of the public within the city.
Will there be any more information forthcoming relative to the 27 million, that number?
I believe so, and that's going to come from the Finance Department. I'm speaking strictly on the public safety aspects of the annexation.
Any other questions or statements? Thank you so much.
Just one question.
Mr. Vice President?
Mr. Director, you said that by December, January 1st, that the boundaries have to be set. And the boundary is set after the annexation vote. That's what they're looking at?
What we propose is that we move and allow the people in the proposed area to vote there so that we may set our boundaries before January the 1st of 2020.
So therefore, you can set the boundaries before the vote, correct?
Post-vote. If the areas vote into the city of Mobile, then we will reset the boundaries of the city for the upcoming census vote, and we're hoping that we can have these areas vote before the end of the year so that we may set our boundaries before January the 1st of 2020.
So I guess this is a question towards the attorneys. So the annexation is due to be back in front of the council on the 19th. Is there's enough time if it was to pass the council on the 19th? Is it like it does enough time for it to be voted on? I guess that's my question. Because I heard rumors that 4 to 5 days or something after the judge, 4 to 5 days. I can't remember exactly what I have heard. So my question is, even if it's voted on the 19th, we don't have 4 to 5 days before the 1st of January. So.
Go ahead. We've already been in touch with probate. The probate judge if it proceeds through on the 19th, will set this vote before Christmas this year, so that we do not interfere with the holidays. And so it's not a 45-day wait. It's actually, the vote has to be set within 20, no less than 20, no more than 40. So we could proceed with the vote 20 days after the referendum is certified by the mayor and sent to probate.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other comments or statements? Members of the council? Thank you. Madam City Clerk.
Adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is adopted.
Appeals, we have request for waiver of the noise ordinance on December 6th from 6 p.m. until 9 p.m.
So moved.
Second?
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Public hearings. Today is the public hearing to declare structures at 2009 Balsworth Street, 328 Smith Street, 620 Bellsaw Avenue, 717 Conception Street, 308 Fifth Avenue public nuisances and ordering them demolished.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak during those public hearings?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That's actually my wife,
Could you give us your name and address,
Stanley
please?
Commander.
Yes, sir.
My address is 4224 Highway 612, Lucedale, Mississippi. But the property that is 308 Fifth Avenue, Mobile, Alabama.
Yes, sir.
It's my wife's parents' property, and every time I go down there and do something that they ask me to do, somebody goes in there, they ask me to board the windows and the doors up, I did that. They go down there, tear it down, and now they're wanting to demolish the place, and I don't think it's to that point. I mean, it needs some work done to it, but I don't think it's to the point to where it needs to be demolished.
Mr. Doffenbach?
Yes, sir. David Dockenbaugh, Deputy Director, Municipal Enforcement. The property at the Fifth Avenue here, 308 Fifth Avenue, we have some problems with the roof, and you mentioned that you've had problems with people breaking the windows and consistently securing the property. All we're asking is that the property owners secure the property and also repair the roof. Once that's done, we can step back and close our file.
I mean, I don't have a problem doing it, I just need time. It's just, I mean, I try to get, it's 7 of them, and I'm the one that does anything. I'm just asking, what's the time to do it?
Yes, how about we give you, how much time do you need?
I mean, as much as I can get, really,
Well,
because I
we-
do work a full-time job, too.
And we understand that, but this has been festering for a while, and Mr. Doggenbaugh has been working on it, so we need some sort of time certain. Do you need a month? Are we going to see you back here in 6
Probably
months with the
after,
same?
Maybe 3 months,
That'd be good.
couple of months.
How about we split it in half? David, what do you think?
I do want to remind the council, we have a 120-day time period to have a decision rendered, and we're halfway through that process now. We're 60 days into the process. So if we could revisit, maybe table for 30 days, that should give you ample time to get a building permit, get started on the construction, and we can reassess at that point within 30 days.
Does 30 days work for you?
I don't think it's gonna be enough time, but I do what I do.
Well, let's,
Like I said, I do work a full-time job.
I
And
understand.
it's my wife, kinfolks' property, and none of them want to do anything about it but me. Yeah.
Well, the ultimate thing then would be that they would wind up demolishing it, if you're not to do what you need to do.
Well, I mean, I don't know about in 30 days. You said it's me, and I do work a full-time job, you know.
I think it's 30 days to pull the permit.
And commence construction.
Yeah, and then, but not to finish everything
I mean,
out.
what are y'all asking me to do, to repair the roof?
No.
That is correct. What we want to do is secure the exterior of the envelope of the house, which was the roof, exterior walls. In this case, we want to board up the broken window that's missing. So it'd be done. It's just a matter of pulling the permit and starting the.
Okay, well, originally, the house had windows in it, and people go there and knock them out. I plywooded them up. They asked me to put plywood. I screwed them with a window. They went in there and tore that down. I mean, I don't want to go put new windows in it, and somebody come right behind me and knock them right back out. you know? I mean,
Well, we understand, but how about we go with the 30 days, and you work with Mr. Doggenbaugh and keep us posted on what kind of progress you have, and if you're not able to make the deadline, then we can decide whether or not to go forward at that time. Will that work for you?
yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Dog, appreciate it.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak during these public hearings? Yes, sir.
Good morning, Council.
Good morning.
My name is Paul Moore. I was here previously in
We
reference
need
to...
your address, sir.
I'm sorry?
Your address.
374 Dunbar Street.
Mhm.
And I didn't hear that address called, but I did receive a letter to appear today.
Mr. Doc, you made a comment about this particular address in our
Table it.
Dunbar,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So this item, you can inform me.
This is the location where we've exceeded the 120 days, and my department needs to go back and renotice you, the property owner, but anybody else that has an interest in the property.
So this item will be tabled today. And then he'll notify you again, and then you'll be able to come back and offer commentary at that time.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
In the initial letter that I received, as far as the things that needed to be done, things were done. So I'm just trying to see where we are right now.
Well, what this will do is give you an additional set of time
Okay.
to work those issues out. And the gentleman that would best be able to respond to your inquiry is Mr. Doffenbach, the gentleman that just was standing next to you.
Yes, sir.
If you could connect with him,
Okay,
he'll be able to work those issues out with you.
okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming down. Anyone else?
There's a Sina Andre on here regarding demolition.
Ms. Andre? Sina Andre?
I think someone had just stepped out and talked.
Oh, okay. Maybe she stepped out. Madam City Clerk. If not, public hearings are closed.
Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Joseph Jones.
Joseph Seymour Jones. My address is 1464 St. Stephen's Road. That's the building. The dirt address is 1500. And that's been a convenient way on St. Stephen's Road to keep up with a vacant set of lots. A couple of them, few of them are owned by the city. One of them is claimed owned by Habitat for Humanity, which was used in '98, I guess, for a tax shelter, but the property seems to go back to a church, and from the church, it's a private trust fund. So I've just come across a little more research I need to do on that chain of title, but the city, in recent days, last week in particular, said that a gate would be put at that location. So that goes another question of ownership. So anyway, it's a vacant lot. 1506 is attached to Congress Street for ways of description and location, but the park is planned for 1506 St. Stephen's Road. That's a technicality where a house once stood, and the city condemned and evicted the person who lived there to get their property back because it was once a trolley stop adjacent to the list of historic homes at that location. But in any case, the issue I raised today has to do with the recent homicide in the park. Don't know how far public safety has gone to try to solve that. We do know that some families impacted, just as in the case of 2013, October 29, when some cyclist was, murdered in Limes Park. That's close to where this park is in the middle of. It's between Peter Sullivan, the voting center on Catherine, Lions Park at Spring Hill, at the corner of Center Street and Catherine Street. So we have 2 parks there already. But this one, I'm concerned about the zoning change or the lack of, and a few other things. So that was 2013. Then we had the bag lady who was killed in the park. She was a wealthy lady. She had $10,000 in the basket. Obviously, someone didn't want to rob her. But in any case, when it comes to parks and security, the park initiated by what I understand is a community organization. My mother, of course, deceased as the last homeowner. We bought there in '77. I just got access through your engineering department to her contract sale document. I refused to pull her documents forward, trying to bring claim settlement issues, because that became a matter when the 911 call went out on December 18 of 15. And there's another question as to...
What was the matter of a 911 call?
The issue of digitizing that address with the building and the deed having the only property location, which is 1464. That was the first issue I raised in July of 18, where engineering can now give me the instrument number and the book and page number, which my mother's documents are secured to her home. With this matter, I may have to look for another location, but at the point we are now, I want to stay there. But in the case of this release probate, we have what I consider some collaborative, uniform Alabama collaborative law issues that I would say, and probate has been raised with your attorney for the council, and that was done on September 4, 18. So anyway, what we're going to probably have happen with Miss Sally Kasarfin Jones, who's quite a reputable person in the state, as well as the national set, as well as the international set.
International what now?
As well as the international setting.
International setting?
Yes, sir. I took her to England in '06, and she had passports. So when it comes to dealing with her, and she has other sons, I'm afraid we're going to get into an issue of trashing the good name of a person that I just refuse to allow it to go that way. So what I'm going to do now is enter into your record. You can tell me if you want the original copy or do you want a signed copy. But I need to give you where you settled the mayor issue recently about the Zogby Act, and you used an attorney, law firm, who was Atkinson. We settled the matter there in 14. My mother and I had to sit and talk with them, so she was the witness on my civil matter through the district court.
Your mother was?
Yes. So in any case, I'm going to give you my job placement with the Mobile County Schools. They had my race code as N, and I took that to mean neither of the racial categories recognized on the job application. They were involved in litigation matters where you place a minority, supposed to be 40%. Well, that was me. I was once to be one of the 40%, but I would be employed to give my jobs to white guys, and that was fine.
Mr. Jones.
But in this matter now,
Mr.
I'm going to ask
Jones.
you for the record.
For the record,
Yes.
your time has elapsed.
Do you want the original copy?
Either one you want to share with us.
We don't want the original.
We appreciate your
Yes. And I'll be doing
commentary,
probate
Mr.
issues
Jones.
to help address some of this.
Yes,
Try
sir.
to hire me some help to deal with it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time.
No problem. It's going to be a beautiful park.
I'm sorry.
No comments. Yes, sir. All right. God bless you.
Joaquin Holloway.
Good morning, members of the Mobile City Council, Mayor in absentia, and Matt. My name is Joaquin Holloway. The address is 22066 Kloof Court, Mobile, Alabama, 36617-2405. Thank you for once again giving me an opportunity to share some thoughts about my interest in trains. November is National Model Railroading Month, and from 2007 until 2013, the Mobile Society of Model Engineers, MSME, displayed a large modular layout in the Larkins Auditorium at the Mobile Museum of Art for an extended interval near the end of each year. However, in 2014, because of an elaborate display, the art and design of Mardi Gras, for a total of 6 months, we were unable to use that area to set up our model railroad for various groups to enjoy. However, beginning in 2014 until 2019, our HO scale trains have been running in the Gulf Coast Explorium. The staff at that location has been most helpful with the total setup and operation of these 1/87th-inch models. So I encourage each person here this morning to help spread the word about the exhibit on the second floor in a section devoted to Christmas from now until the end of the year. There are many other comments I could make about model trains and other local organizations that are involved in this worthwhile hobby. There's another group called SWARM, which stands for Southwest Alabama Railroad Modelers, and they are very actively involved in the hobby. Finally, I'd like to invite everybody to look at my 4 color photographs and 3 model trains in the atrium here at Government Plaza before you leave the building. I also want you to know that from time to time you will see the automobile carriers passing by in different locations. This is an HO scale model, and sometimes when people see our display, they wonder what the size is. This is HO, which actually stands for half-O. So that if we could enlarge this car 87 times, it would be prototypically correct, right down to the location and the number of rivets, okay? Or on the other hand, if we could reduce ourselves 87 times, we could get on board and take a ride. I've also ordered from Kalmbach Publication a box of these little booklets, Introduction to Model Railroading, and they will be available at the Explorium. I also put the little crossbuck pins in front of everybody, and if you don't mind, at some point, if you'd like to wear it, please do so. And finally, I'd like to say that real men do wear pink ties, and on some of the ties there are trains. Thank you very much.
Dr. Holloway, we have a question for you.
How long will the train be set up at the Explorium? From when to when?
We set the trains up. The executive director, Don Comeau, called and asked me if we'd have them running by the 8th of November. And so we were able to go down there, and their staff members actually know how to take the 18-foot by 20-foot section, which has 12 modules, and they had them arranged, they had pins in place. Our membership has decreased to about 5 now with Mobile Society of Model Engineers, but we had to put the flex tracks in over the joints and get the trains running on all 3 of the layouts. So the official opening date was the 9th of November, and this year they'll be there through November and December, and we'll take them down in January. By the way, the photographs in the atrium will be there until January the 3rd, 2020, okay? But it's a fun layout. We enjoy the hobby very much, and I have one final comment I want to make. One year we were running our trains at the Greater Gulf State Fair, and one of my colleagues from the University of South Alabama was trying to guess be smart, and he says, "Oh, Ken, I see you playing with trains." And I said, "No, we're not playing. We're serious about the hobby of model railroading." And I thought that would have been enough, but he just kept trying to find some smart comment to make. And so finally he said, "Well, Joaquin, where's your cap?" I said, "I don't wear a cap because I own the railroad."
If someone, Dr. Holloway, if someone was interested in becoming a part of your organization, I noticed you mentioned the decline in membership, who would contact?
Well, we'll have some membership forms down there at the Explorium, and membership in our club is only $10 a year. And if, for example, you have a model train in HO scale, HO and 187, HO actually stands for half-O, which is 1/48 the size of the real train. But whenever the railroad layout is set up, if you're a member of the club, bring your train and run it on our layout. People sometimes say, "Well, Joaquin, do you have a layout at home?" And I don't. I have a lot of trains at home, but if I had a layout at home, I probably wouldn't have enough space for a layout as elaborate as the one that's there. And 9 times out of 10, I would be talking to myself, but I enjoy sharing my interest in the hobby with other people. And I want you to know that I still have the very first train that I got one Christmas when I was 4 years old. And I will be 82 on the 28th of December. And that train still runs.
All right.
Of course, there was a friend of mine, I won't call his name, he's deceased now, but he used to always remind people that when we would have birthday parties when we were little, I would not let him play with my trains or touch my trains. And if I had the train wouldn't be running today because he would want to see a grade crossing accident or run it off the house.
Thank you. So membership forms will be at the Explorium?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
The Exploring House, they close on Monday normally, we're open Monday this week on Veterans Day. They're open on Tuesday through Thursday from 9 until 4. And on Friday and Saturday from 9 until 5. And on Sunday from 12 until 5.
Yes, sir.
I'll be there most of the time because I'm retired from the University of South Alabama, and I enjoy the hobby very much.
Thank you.
Can I
Thank
ask
you
a
for
question?
coming.
Do you have
Ms.
a
Rich?
flyer that we could run in our newsletters about your time at the Explorium with your trains?
Yes, as a matter of fact, on the Exploring webpage, there is some comments.
Okay.
About
Grab it
so
from
if you
there.
look it up, you'll see the information.
Great.
And they're so excited about Belly Out, and we appreciate the fact that they do a lot of the grunt guard expression. But we have a trailer that's in the courtyard at the Explorium, and it has 3 levels of shelves where we can slide out the modules in place. Well, they have moved now the modules into an interior space, and they're going to rebuild some shelves there in the new location. The first year we were there, we were upstairs by the elevators. And then the second, third, fourth year, fifth year, we were downstairs. But now we moved upstairs to a new space, which is very, very nice. I hope you all will go by and see
Great.
it. And they're going to build some shelves so that they won't have far to move.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pastor Benjamin Torrance.
I don't see him, absolutely.
Stephen Nodine.
Mr. Vice President, City Council, distinguished guests, it's been a while since I've addressed you. I wanted to touch upon what Director Barber had stated, that the annexation issue is the most vital. Oh, excuse me, 310 Dolphin Street, Mobile, Alabama.
All right.
I should have known that as long as I've been up there. The annexation issue is the most vital, not only to public safety, but for the well-being of our city. Many of you know here that for the 3 times I opposed annexation. In fact, I did everything to defeat it. The last time being in 2008, before the city of Sims became an incorporated city. It was certainly pressure upon myself to either allow the city of Mobile to grow or the city of Sims to incorporate. I'm glad that the city of Sims is incorporated. It's become a very good and viable city. But right now, in this city's history, I think this annexation vote is the most critical. There's been a lot of numbers thrown around, a lot of numbers that say that the county citizens are taking advantage of the city and some of the public services that they receive. Some say that they don't pay their fair share, but I know Mayor Jones, Commissioner Jones, Representative Jones, and I worked very hard together, along with many of you that sit here before me, on major issues such as ThyssenKrupp, Austal, and Airbus. When it came to recruiting those industries, it took both city and county collectively with incentives. The city couldn't do it alone. The county couldn't do it alone. Commissioner Jones then became a mayor, and he continued the partnership that we have with the county, as well as Commissioner Hudson. Not only did we put massive amounts of money into economic development for jobs and for the citizens in both the city and the county, as well as the Gulf Coast, we all had the pay-as-you-go program. Before I became in office, it was very difficult. Those 2 annexation moves was on the city council were thwarted because of some of the issues that you have right now. Some of our parks were crumbling. Our sidewalks weren't complete. We had major issues within our own districts that we felt should be taken care of before we annexed other parts of the city. 15 years is a long time. Much has changed for the better of this community, both in the city and the county. The annexation issue can be talked about for a long time. I want to be number 2. I don't want to be like Auburn. No disrespect, Chief. I want to be number 1. The efforts that all of you and many before you have put forward to get these jobs, to build a better community, is certainly contingent upon what we do now on the annexation move. I never thought that I'd be here addressing you concerning annexation because I thought it was a dead issue. Many believe that the county doesn't want to be part of the city, and that's the furthest thing from the truth. The citizens of the county love the city, and the city loves the county. We are successful together. I certainly understand some of the issues when it comes to numbers. The census numbers sometimes do not reflect upon the true count that we have in this city. Chief, Director, everybody has new titles here, excuse me. We know for a long time, we had issues providing services out there, but in the last 10 years, the city of Mobile has done a terrific job. I implore upon you to vote for annexation, allow people to voice their vote to become a part of this city. They too also want to contribute to the success of the city. I read much again in some of the newspapers and some of the media outlets about these numbers. And I do believe that they need to be looked at and studied hard. But I also know this, if we continue to lose 1,500 people a year to Baldwin County or elsewhere where we're continuing to deplete our tax base, which we have done in the last 10 years, it's incumbent upon you to make that decision of a rational decision to allow these people to vote, come into the city, and build a better city and county for the future. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Noda, let me ask you a question. I just want to make certain I heard part of your commentary right. While you served on the council, there were 3 annexation efforts?
I think there were 2, Fred. Was there 2001, 2003? I'm getting so old I can't remember back that far. I think there was 2001, 2003, 2007. Correct. Right.
And did you vote to support any of those actions?
I did not. I believed in some of the same concerns you had, but we did not have a penny tax for infrastructure. We did not have the cooperation as we do with Commissioner Hudson now and our other commissioners in providing infrastructure dollars from the Pay-As-You-Go program. For instance, maybe Mr. West could tell you, or the Public Service Director could tell you, that without us in the county contributing to many of the repaving of the streets, probably wouldn't be done before the penny tax. And so there was always cooperation and shared cost within those areas. And between the investment in economic development, investment in the Pay-As-You-Go program, the county citizens certainly put their fair share in. It seems sometimes we look at these things as, well, the people out west in the police and fire jurisdiction are not paying their fair share, and I don't think that is the case. I'm sure there's a disproportionate amount.
I have a,
Ms. Reed?
the other thing that is quite different today is all of the businesses and economic development in the corridor that would be a great boost to our treasury if we had them at the 100% rate of taxation. And then actually property tax. So when you were looking at it, the lay of the land wasn't quite the same as it's
That's
developed
correct.
today. 'Cause
There's no doubt about it. And I look at the Pay-As-You-Go, and Commissioner Jones was here, I think, when Pay-As-You-Go was put into effect. It's babies, but it's been a successful program, and the county needs to realize when the city is strong, that tax base in the Pay-As-You-Go program will be even stronger and afford us the opportunity, hopefully, get rid of the penny tax one day and consolidate services in some areas, which needs to be, I said this 14, 15 years ago about consolidation of services. And I wish the county and the city would take a strong look at doing that to save millions of dollars and build a better cohesive area of engineering, road building, public services.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, we have a number of people signed in for the rezoning. on Nose Lane, and this is Ursula Brown is the first speaker.
Madam City Clerk, how
Yes.
many persons are assigned?
Oh, let's see. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
9.
9.
Yes, ma'am. Look, can we have your name, please?
That's Ursula Brown.
She's indicating that she doesn't have to speak. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Jerry Spiegel. Jerry? Oh, he's coming.
Good morning. I'm Jerry Spiegel, 4320 Babb Street. Appreciate the opportunity to address you today. I'm a lawyer, and I'm here representing Sandtown residents and other concerned residents about the rezoning issue. As many of you know, Sandtown's a historic neighborhood. It's always been residential. They recently received approval of a 501c3 organization, tax-free organization, to further their historic preservation accreditation. I looked back at the history on this issue and saw the planning department's report. And as you may know, the planning department, who are the planning professionals the city pays, they're experts, recommended against this rezoning. In that report, they cited section 64-9 of the zoning ordinance, that the intent of the ordinance and corresponding zoning map is to carry out the comprehensive planning objective of sound, stable, and desirable development. While changes to the ordinance are anticipated as the city grows, the established public policy is to amend the ordinance only when one or more of the following conditions prevail. In a rezoning like this, Planning Commission, the Planning Department saw it as an amendment to the zoning ordinance, and I think that's the proper way to approach this. Anyway, they said that the following conditions must prevail. One is there's a manifest error in the ordinance. I don't believe that's the case here. 2, that changing conditions in a particular area make a change in the ordinance necessary and desirable. The Planning Department said that is not the case here. 3, that there's a need to increase the number of sites available to business or industry. The Planning Department was not convinced that was true, and that the subdivision of land into building sites makes reclassification of the land necessary and desirable. As far as the changing conditions issue, your Planning Department said no. Dr. Edmonds stated that the changing conditions in her application, the changing conditions in the area make the rezoning desirable. However, given that the property, and here's what the Planning Department staff said, however, given that the property proposed to be rezoned is not adjacent to any other commercial zoning district, the rezoning may not be appropriate at this time. In fact, they cited that the subject site is bounded to the north, south, east, and west by R1 single-family residential districts. Not R2, not R3, but R1. And the proposal is a little confusing from looking at the past, but it looks like it was originally, request was for a change of zoning to B2, and now it's B1. The Planning Department also said there's no evidence of changing conditions. They said they didn't see that, which is one of the requirements. The southeast corner of Gregor and Spring Hill, which is this close to this piece of property, is just west of, on Spring Hill, west of St. Ignatius. The proponent, Dr. Edmonds, said that the growth around the University of South Alabama necessitates additional land to be zoned commercial or continue to support this area. This property isn't adjacent to the University of South Alabama. It's not intended to serve the University of Alabama. It's a veterinary clinic. And in fact, the veterinary clinic right now that Dr. Edmonds has is right down the street at the shopping center where McCoy's is. Why, in fact, that they want to move about a half a mile west is unknown to us, and why there's also going to be another lot next door that they want in this same PUD to be zoned as also B1 with an unknown tenant there. We don't know, but there must be some intended use out there, but we aren't aware of it, and I would suspect you're not. The planning department is there for a reason. We believe that the council ought to listen to the planning department. Those are your experts. They recommended denial of this rezoning, and we believe the council should also deny this rezoning request. There are a number of citizens that oppose this rezoning, neighbors and residents, neighbors around the area, and residents of Sandtown. If I could, I'd ask the opposition citizens, if you would, to stand for a moment. Let the council see who you are. Thank you. I answer any questions if I can, but I'll stop my time here.
Mr. President, if I might, thank you, Mr. Spiegel, for coming. I appreciate that. I appreciate everyone coming today. I've got some notes in front of me, so I'm just trying to make sure I get everything in a logical order since we're have started our hearing portion of this. But what I'd like to suggest is perhaps we can move things along a little quicker with some help from my colleagues. That's what Mr. Richardson was whispering in my ear, that perhaps I could make a statement and we could move toward a vote. However, since Mr. Spiegel has already spoken, I certainly want to give someone on the other side the opportunity to speak before asking that I be able to make these remarks and see where that goes. So if anyone on the other side would like to speak, Mr. President, would that be?
I have absolutely no problem.
Okay, Ms. Lambert, is there someone who signed in who would like to speak in favor? Well, because one person spoke, and I would like to have somebody on the proponent side speak before I make a statement.
Can we speak after your statement? So we
You're on the record.
If they've signed in to speak, there's certainly, you know, and if y'all want to just go ahead and let everybody speak, you know, it's up to my colleagues on the council how they would like to handle this.
Let them speak, and
Let them speak, you know.
He said,
Yeah.
Todd Dempsey, 143 Myrtlewood Lane.
Did you tell us?
You can state that in the microphone.
Yeah, I will. Todd Dempsey, 143 Myrtlewood Lane. My name is Todd Dempsey. Like I said, I live in Councilwoman Gregory's district. I live near the property that is proposed for rezoning, and I understand there's been a lot of meetings among various groups associated with this, and a lot of misinformation has been circulated. But I wanted to speak to you all today about something that I do not think has been mentioned at any meeting among neighbors, applicants, or the council. I often hear the council and the mayor state that we need to attract more businesses to Mobile and more young people to our city. The majority of the people I went to high school with here in Mobile went to Birmingham, Atlanta, or Nashville after graduation because Mobile could not offer the same opportunities for employment that those towns could. Now, those opportunities are available because obviously a number of factors, but one of which is the ability to locate and open a business. That ability is controlled among other things, by the City Council and the Planning Commission. The parcel that we are discussing, as you know, is located along a 5-lane arterial road, which is where businesses are usually located in cities around the country. Additionally, this road is already littered with businesses on it. We have 2 young women entrepreneurs who are spending their money to try and locate their business along a main commercial thoroughfare in our city. If our town cannot see how rezoning this is beneficial to the area by improving what is currently there, adding to the tax basis via new revenue, contributing construction jobs to the city, and supporting a young business person, I fear the consequences will just play back in the narrative that a lot of young people have of Mobile. Mobile is not a place with a lot of opportunity because the powers that be are inflexible, so why would they move back? Cities grow and shrink, areas within cities change, and a rezoning is the mechanism that allows a city to adapt their property uses to those changes. Spring Avenue may have been primarily a residential road at one point, but today it is a 5-lane artery where traffic travels through our city. Adapting the zoning to fit the thoroughfare is why the ability of a rezone exists. I'm sure you all know this, but the proposed development has little to no negative impacts to the surrounding area from a traditional development standpoint. It is not located in the middle of the neighborhood, it's on an artery. It does not add traffic to the road because it's already located on that road. It is not open during non-business hours. It is not offensive in nature. It emits no unpleasant odors, chemicals, or products, and it does not attract a less than desirable customer base. If a pet clinic can't open on a 5-lane road that already has a transmission shop on it with open bays working on cars, a dollar store, a car wash, and a gas station on it, what can? I understand the neighbors do not want anything on this property, and I understand the applicants have made concessions on their end. I personally have been involved in over 80 real estate developments and close to 40 rezonings. I have no personal or financial interest in this project other than as a neighbor and a citizen of Mobile. My history and experience tells me that when neighbors are never going to concede on anything, it means they're never going to be happy with anything going there. Times change, cities change, is not realistic, and that is not a realistic approach to take, because if we allow that mindset to dictate our decisions, our city would never grow or have any progress. I would hope you can look to see the big picture in relation to how your decision will impact the perception and the narrative that people have of our town. I live just down the road from this parcel, and I 100% support this rezoning. I would urge you to do the same. Whatever decision you make is going to make people talk. I hope that talk is positive about Mobile and not negative. This is more than just a decision to rezone from residential to commercial. It is a decision on if our city is going to support young entrepreneurs and change our narrative, or if we're going to do the same old thing and be left behind. Thank you for all your work on the city, and I hope you will support this rezoning.
Mr. Dempsey,
Yes.
do you live in the Sandtown community?
I don't. I live right down the street on the other side of Tut Hill.
On the other side of Tut Hill, yes, sir. Thank you.
But relative distance to some of the people that are here in opposition, I live closer to this than they do. By the way of close.
Thank you, Mr. Dempsey. Ladies and gentlemen.
Not all of them. Some.
Ladies and gentlemen, the last rule was no public outcry was going to be allowed. We appreciate your participation.
So, just,
We'll go down the list. Yes, ma'am.
Barbara Smith. Okay. Leon Nelson. No. Okay. Mary Edmonds.
Good afternoon. Mary Edmonds, 3488 Spring Hill Avenue. Thank you again for your time today and your consideration of this issue. A month ago, we had a public hearing for the rezoning of the 2 parcels on the frontage road of Spring Hill Avenue from R1 to B1. At that time, the vote was postponed for 2 weeks in an effort to allow a dialogue with key individuals in the surrounding area who did not support the rezoning. The goal was to potentially come to a compromise. A small group of neighbors, as well as myself, my business partner, and Gina Gregory, soon met for a roundtable discussion of possible concessions on our part for compromise. Immediately, we provided a list of restrictions on B1 uses for parcels. I offered for Sandtown Community Action Groups or an individual family member to purchase the rear residential property, but I was quickly and bluntly told they were not interested in purchasing that property. Last, I offered a section of land between Lot 1 and the church to be donated for use as a park to honor the Sandtown Community Action Group and their history. The vote was then postponed an additional 2 weeks to give them additional time to work on a compromise. No communication was initiated by the group. Yesterday, I was advised that the neighbors will not provide any sort of concession topics, and in that they did not accept or acknowledge prior concessions offered. I truly did hope that the delay in voting would allow for at least some dialogue on the matter. I was hoping for a compromise, but I'm very disappointed the time granted was not utilized by the group to discuss matters with ourselves or our team. We have agreed to and will stand by proposed concessions of, number one, an enlarged 20-foot special buffer around the entire property, both commercial and residential portions for the neighbors. Number two, a neighborhood-friendly design of the building. Number three, ensure no commercial traffic onto Knowles Lane. Number four, no business hours on weekends. Number five, restrictions to outdoor kennels use during church, to no use during church services. Number six, offered Sandtown Community Action Group and any of its individual members to purchase the rear residential property. And number seven, offer an area of land with Spring Hill Avenue frontage adjoining the Mount Hebron Church as a pocket park for the Sandtown Community Action Group. If they are not interested in that, I am willing for the church to use that area as a sanctuary courtyard. We haven't discussed that yet, but that is an option open. I am disheartened by the lack of dialogue. Neighbors simply do not want any changes to the land by St. Ignatius Church. It is currently a wooded piece of property that has been used for illegal dumping of household trash and lawn debris. I feel like I have started this venture in good faith to listen to any and all concerns of the residents and make concessions where I could, but it's apparent that no amount of compromise is going to appeal the opposition, and there is nothing else I could do. And there is a large number of neighbors who do support this rezoning. There is no other commercial property on Spring Hill Avenue available. We would like to purchase this property and build an updated clinic to serve the community. Spring Hill Avenue is not a quiet, quaint neighborhood street, but a major thoroughfare. A vote yes for rezoning this land would allow for beautification of the area as well as show support for a local small business and show the desire to allow Mobile positive, constructive growth within the city limits. We ask for your support and a vote yes to the rezoning. Any questions?
No, and Dr. Edmonds, I really appreciate you coming and how gracious you and your partners have been through all of this. I know it's been very, very difficult for you, as well as the neighbors who have been in opposition. You have been very upfront and vocal about what you would be willing to do, and I just really appreciate that. We don't get that very often from applicants for rezonings, so that was very refreshing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mandy Austin.
Hello. I'm Mandy Alston, 3488 Spring Hill Avenue. I've been kind of the silent background person, so just to give another face to the partner in the business. I'm partner at Spring Hill Animal Clinic and starting our campaign to rezone this lot from residential to B1. We face three main issues from the residents: noise, traffic, and water drainage. Through many offered concessions, these issues were addressed. For those who remain in opposition, the issue is the rezoning itself. Spring Avenue, as we've said, major thoroughfare with residential and business right amongst it. You've all mentioned time and time again the meetings that you work for the people. We are people too. We employ people as well. We have been kind, shown respect, and yet on our end, our meetings to inform the neighbors have been hijacked. We have received threatening emails. We have had threats made to our faces, and I do not think that that kind of behavior should be rewarded. The fact is, this land has sat vacant for sale for 10-plus years, had ample time to buy this land or to try to make it a historical site, chose not to. We ask you to realize what's on the table here. There are many neighbors who do support this. We are two young entrepreneurs who do so much for the community, offering affordable, quality veterinary care. We ask you to vote yes to the rezoning from residential to B1 for our local small business. Thank you.
Very briefly, Mandy, thank you for coming as well. I know that you and your partner are pretty disheartened by how the whole thing has gone down, and I do appreciate you all being so willing to negotiate. I also really regret the tone that some emails have taken. Some of what was considered threat, it might not have actually been a threat, but certainly the tone was
threatening.
And that's just uncalled for,
Yes.
no matter what is going on. This is a rezoning, for a simple property rezoning on a, major east-west thoroughfare. And the kind of language that we've heard in some of these correspondences is just simply uncalled for, and it does not help anybody's position. So I'm really sorry that that happened to you all, and just certainly hope that people learn this and that it does not help. But thank you for coming and being.
Thank you.
William.
Good afternoon. William Latta, 3901 Spring Hill Avenue. I first want to address the comments by Mr. Spiegel. He was correct in what he read from the Planning Commission staff report, but I would actually make the staff report's incorrect. It does border the B2 zoning on the corner for a portion of southern border. So basing the notion that it might not be appropriate at this time on the fact that it doesn't border any other commercial zones may not be accurate. And so we may not have sufficiently explained that in our application, and thus the staff report is what it is. But obviously, the Planning Commission uses the staff report for making their determination along with the public hearing, and we clearly explained that at the public hearing. But I want to bring up a couple of more issues, and that's the neighbors have said that they just simply oppose commercial development in this area. Most, if not all, the other concerns are based on the premise that the applicant is going to operate her business violating municipal codes, the noise ordinance, the stormwater ordinance. Allowing these accusations when considering zoning amendments sets a dangerous precedent. It is especially problematic when you consider that one of the most vocal opponents of this rezoning operates an animal clinic and is a direct competitor of the applicant. This demonstrates a mechanism for other businesses to eliminate or limit potential competition. When you consider the residents on Knowles Lane, they have opposed every development and every change to development in their immediate vicinity. It's clear that they do not want any change or progress in this area. When you take into account the larger area and the opposing residents in that area, it would certainly seem that they have been selective in choosing this development and this site to oppose commercial development. There have been several other developments in the surrounding area of the Spring-McGregor intersection where adjacent neighbors have opposed the development because they were concerned about their quality of life. But did you hear anything from the surrounding neighborhoods? No. And those properties got rezoned. Ultimately, we're just asking you to allow a local business owner to improve her business, provide future support, security for her business, and you can do that by simply approving this rezoning application.
That's all.
Before we move forward, we want to recognize former Mayor Samuel L. Jones. I've been informed that he does have an inquiry relative to a subject matter that we spoke of earlier. So I'm going to ask if we would hear from him at this time.
Mr. President and council members, and to all who are in attendance today, I was really trying to get some procedural information. I do plan to make a presentation to you on annexation. I'm trying to determine what's the best method to do it. You know, what has been available to the public, it's kind of, we got a little bit out the paper, we got a little bit from here and a little bit from there, trying to put it all together and kind of assess it is what I've done over the last month. And I want to make a presentation to you on some areas that I think have not been discussed. But I don't want to try to cram it into trying to do it from the podium. If we can do it in your conference or wherever, that's fine with me. Because my intent is not to come to disrupt what you're trying to do. My intent is to provide you some additional information that needs to be looked at before you do whatever you're going to do. So that's what I wanted to know. What is the best method to do that?
Mr. How long do you perceive this presentation to be?
About 10 minutes.
Carry on now.
And it
Well, if you could have that ready Tuesday,
Yes.
what I'm hearing, we could probably, after the pre-conference meeting, have an opportunity to hear the presentation then.
Yes, I mean, it just kind of drills down some of your numbers and everything down to the area you're annexing and the area in question, and some other areas that really need to be discussed. The difference between what we did and what you're doing is we had to have a pre-clearance on ours. That doesn't exist anymore. You don't have to do that. But there are some areas of that I'd like to discuss with you. Certainly, you know, I'm not against annexation. I worked on that for a lot of years. So I'm not against annexation generally. But there's some specifics that I do think need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed not generally, but specifically. So that's what I want to do in that particular time.
Can I ask a question?
Are we in agreement to host this right after pre-council meeting?
Fine with me.
Ms. Rich?
Yeah, thank you. I look forward to hearing, your commentary on this. A lot of difference in this annexation is that the group came to the city and asked to join us. And
Not that much different. They did the same thing. Some groups came to the city and the other.
Right, but there was, so are you talking, when you talk about demographics, are you talking about racial demographics? Is that?
I'm talking about a number of different demographics. I'm
I
talking
see.
about the way you computed costs. I'm talking about, that's been presented to us, and I'm talking about the public. You might already have this.
No, we have exactly what has been
To
public.
drill it down to, I think the numbers you gave at one time was 70,000 people in the jurisdiction, something like that. Okay, and you annexing 13,000 of them.
Right,
Well, to me, 26 million has no relationship to that.
I agree with you.
That's just the way I look at it. So those are some of the things I want to talk about and kind of drill that down some. And I'm sure that your public safety department knows how much it costs them to cover this particular area, doing right now. I hope we do, because that's what we're basing a lot of this on.
Right,
So
well,
that's
where
what I
they
want to talk about.
say the numbers came from, but
So that'll be fine. If that's what the conference is, about 10?
It should about, we start at 9, hopefully we'll get out about 9:45, 10.
Okay.
And then if it's about a 10-minute presentation, we'll have the ability to stay and hear what you would want to present to us.
Okay, and if I can get a lot of it reduced to writing, I'll try to.
I was going to say, if you
Get
have
it.
something in writing, we could be prepared, for your
I
information.
don't have a secretary anymore, so I'll get what I can and present it to you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I would also like to ask that anything that former Mayor Jones has to present to us in terms of statistics or facts be presented to us ahead of time so that the administration has an opportunity to look at that information and respond to it.
I think that would be completely fair. Is that something would you be able to?
You know, the problem with that is, I just got some this morning. He just read off a lot of stuff this morning.
Yeah.
So I don't have the advantage of having all the information you have. All I have is what's available to the public. That's all I have to respond to. And I can't respond to what I don't know. But what I've seen in the newspaper, what you discussed here when I was at the meetings, I can respond to that. But what I got this morning, I can't respond to that because I first got to analyze it. And I'm doing all my analysis myself. Staff is not doing it. I'm doing all of it. So that's why if I had it, I'd present it to you this morning. But that's some of it. I can respond to it right now. But there are other parts that has to be, for instance, I'm sure you use your financial staff and CPAs or whoever to come up with some of the numbers. And what I have to do is go back to the office and try to work on that myself.
Yeah, we get you.
But I mean, I'm not looking for it. This is not going to be a long presentation. I hope it to be strictly factual and put on the table for you to consider. That's
Right.
all I want to do.
And I'm glad to hear you're positive about annexation.
Well, you knew that. You know y'all fought me last time.
I wasn't on council then.
You know, the other thing I'd like to say, it's good to see which places now. I remember when the city council wouldn't pass a sales tax. Now you proposed it. I didn't understand all that. I remember when everybody fought me on the annexation. Now you present it. But anyway, we'll talk about it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Ordinance is held over. 64039, rezone property located at the north side of Spring Hill Avenue from R1 to B1.
The motion before us is to rezone the property, so the proper motion then, Ms. Clerk, would be to move to approve the rezoning, correct?
Correct. And Mr. Richardson
Said
just did
so
it.
moved.
Oh,
And
did
I
you?
will second it.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind, then I didn't have to do it.
It's been properly motioned and second. Any discussion?
Yes, sir, I do have some marks that I'd like to make. I don't know if anybody wants to go before me, since mine is kind of lengthy.
Would you prefer to make your marks at the end?
Yeah, why don't I do mine at the end, since
That's
it's
fine.
kind of lengthy?
And I do too. Go ahead.
Ms. Gregory has mentioned earlier her disappointment of the virulency of the discussion surrounding this proposed rezoning, and I share those concerns. I think that the discussion has sometimes degenerated into personal attacks, and in particular personal attacks upon Councilmember Gregory, in whose district the real property lies. I have the highest level of respect and admiration for Councilwoman Gregory and her reticence and her personal integrity. No one has worked harder than Councilwoman Gregory to try to find a way that the parties could agree. Her patience far outstrips any level of patience I would have been able to bring to this discussion. So I think when personal attacks are directed to her, I'm not only disappointed, I'm angry by it. It doesn't help anybody to make personal attacks upon members of this council, all of whom are here to serve the public. I'm going to be voting against the rezoning. First of all, the property was R1 when the church bought it. The property was R1 when the applicant started down this path. The property was R1 when many of the people who live around it bought their property. So in order to change it from R1 to something else, there has to be an overwhelming reason to do that. Our job here, and let me just say, the voices of the people who live around the property are the voices we need to listen to most closely, because they're the ones who have to live with the result of the rezoning. So as I said, I'll be voting against it. I would issue a cautionary statement to the people who have been opposed to this recently. There is a piece of property in District 5 at the corner of Airport Boulevard and University that had a residential street on one to the east of it and to the south of it. For many, many years, developers sought to turn that piece of property change it from R1 to a commercial piece of property. In every instance, the council unanimously opposed that. Ultimately, what happened, and not too long ago, the matter was taken to the Circuit Court of Mobile County, and the Circuit Court judge directed that the zoning be changed. And there's now a CVS sitting on top of that property. In my mind, the intrusion of commercial property into that neighborhood is more egregious than the proposed this proposed use in front of us. I think if the applicant here chooses to go to circuit court, I think I'd say there's a pretty good chance. I don't know, because I don't know who the judge is going to be, and I hadn't practiced law in 30 or 40 years. But just from that, it seems like to me they'd have a pretty good chance of succeeding in circuit court, at which time those of you who are opposed will have lost your ability to negotiate a different arrangement. So, as I said, I'll be voting in opposition to the rezoning. I wish that a compromise settlement could have been worked out between the parties, but that doesn't appear to be the case. Thank you, Mr. President.
If I could comment?
Ms. Rich?
Thank you. Not to repeat what was just stated, but yes, that CVS, which a lot of people are familiar with, especially if you go out west, for years it was held back as residential because people looked inward and not necessarily at the corner. And we could have challenged that. We didn't challenge it because I think the council was truly in the right position, not seeing that go commercial in the form that it's gone. The other thing is that in listening to residents, my office being out in West Mobile has bumped into a lot of rezoning applications, and neighbors have a very good sense of what is the stability and the health and well-being of their community and the city at large. And so to lean on that aspect of why a council is making a decision that a zoning is inappropriate, I think is pretty square. It really does tell my office when I hear from residents about their concerns about how their quality of life will be decreased in having to put up with a commercial outlet right out their front doors or back doors, whatever that close relationship is. And as Councilman Daves mentioned, there is a benchmark that says only when there is a need to change property, then it gives the council permission to look at the change. But just because someone is interested in it, and again, it was zoned appropriately to be residential, rather those are townhomes someday, but still a residential profile. And so I know it's hard when an application has come forward and a lot of time has been put into it. The owners of the property would like to see the success of that change because they're interested in selling it. But again, you have to look at the long-term implications of changing lands and making the disruption to a community that's in place. So I understand Councilwoman Gregory's trying to reach a consensus, because oftentimes that's very important, and a lot of times if that's done prior to the change coming forward publicly, people don't get into camp, so to speak. If people will do that prior to an application and meet their new neighbors to see what needs to be done, or if anything can be done, that would also save a lot of time, energy, and resources as well. But I will be voting on behalf of the residents that would have to live with that change that they see not in their best interest. Thanks.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, was hoping that y'all could reach some sort of agreement regarding changing the zoning. But ultimately, for me, when I looked at the historicity of your community, that is, those aspects that make your community historic, what it is that make you historic. When I took a look at what it is about Sandtown that makes it historic, that you got a cemetery down there, that's historic. You have a church down there that makes it historic, and that many of the people living in the city have no knowledge about what's happening down in Sandtown. And you are down there. The community itself been down there 150 more years. I have to listen to what you have to say. I was hoping that you all could join together and work it out. Ultimately, I have to go with the community. You all have made your voices, and you have made your points in terms of satisfying me that community ought to be left alone, undisturbed, and you all, it's time now to come back and give you all the recognition that you so greatly deserve. We've been riding up and down Spring Hill Avenue, paying absolutely no attention to you, and I'm giving you all an A for raising your voice, so we will know that you are down there. Not only that you are down there, but you are as important as any other historical community in this city. It's not where you're located that makes you historic. It's how old you are, how long you've been there, what you had to go through to stay there. That's what makes the community historic. And you have proven yourself. I will be voting no.
You know, Mr. Small, I just, pretty much of the points that I would have made have already been made, and I just want to echo to some extent those points. I salute the effort and energy and initiative that Dr. Edmonds has put into this process along with our partners. I salute my colleague, Councilwoman Gina Gregory, who has probably been hit on both sides persistently during this process. And we've gotten all kind of emails, phone calls, letters concerning this effort, and I'm glad that hopefully we'll come to some finality, at least from this legislative standpoint. I heard some commentary about the city and young people and entrepreneurship. The city is absolutely open for business. It's absolutely open for business. There will probably be thousands upon thousands of parcels of land where anyone who has an idea, a vision, and the resources can purchase and develop as it's appropriate zoned. But as I look at the character and nature of this community, take deference to the fact that we have two historic churches right there, including one who is proposing to sell this property. There are members in opposition, persistent and deep opposition, who are parishioners of this church. who actively attend, whose children have come up in this church. I've ridden the property, I've ridden the area, a very tight access, particularly on Knowles Lane. And it's a historic area. And I believe cities of this country would show deference to historic communities and to historic areas, particularly when there are other areas that this potential business could be located in. So I am absolutely not anti-business. We want our, as the youngest person on this council, I want young people to stay here and to invest here. So this is in no means a message we're anti-youth or anti-entrepreneurship. What it ought to say is that we are pro-historic communities and being respectful of everyone and everyone's piece of Mobile. The Sandtown community, I was not aware of it. I was absolutely unaware of Sandtown until this came up. So if there is a plus out of all that we've gone through, is that you all have staked your flag in the sand, literally, Sandtown. And I'm hopeful that you will develop it, get your story out there like all historic communities in the city of Mobile, and I wish you well. Dr. Edmonds, I wish you well, you and your partners. I hope you continue to cure, heal, aid sick dogs and puppies for many, many, many cats and any other animal. I don't know if you're just exclusive to those two, but any other ones for many, many, many years to come. This has not been an easy decision, but I think we've arrived at it. And so I appreciate all of you for the passion that you've exhibited on both sides. Ms. Gregg.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. As you can see, all the council members have opinions, and they all have a vote. And that's one of the things that I tried to explain to everyone who came to me to talk about this rezoning, that while councilmen tend to defer to the member of the district, especially on minor rezoning issues or projects, when it comes to something that is a little more contentious, they don't necessarily do that. They have their own voice, they have their own vote, and they go their own way. So I hope you all understand that. But this rezoning issue has been a very long and difficult one that's pitted neighbor against neighbor, and in some cases parishioner against parishioner. And I really hate what I've seen happen to this small part of my district over rezoning for a veterinary clinic. Now, true, it's a proposal that would rezone a residential property to commercial, and those are always very sensitive. Generally, when we have a contentious rezoning come before us, all of the neighbors come together and work against the rezoning. They don't work at odds against each other. So this was definitely different. You know, I've got for friends and supporters, and I see a lot of you here today on both sides of this issue. I've even been warned by some that my future political career, or lack of, depends on how I vote today. So no matter how I vote, I'm going to make somebody mad. There's just no way around that. But I certainly hope that everybody understands and that they're still my friends and supporters when this is over. We've heard from so many people, some of them multiple times, about this rezoning, and I think we all understand how emotional this has become. And I understand that. A lot of folks, certainly on both sides, have very strong concerns and opinions. Sometimes I, hear from people, as I'm certain my colleagues do, who are misinformed. They have a grudge or even a personal interest, and sometimes it can be all three of them. I try to answer these kinds of emails or letters just as simply as possible with strictly the facts. Try not to put any editorial opinion in, because generally I don't want to start a string of emails and an argument, especially on email. However, this week I did receive an email alleging that I have acted inappropriately insinuating that I'm in cahoots with the developer and that I'm a member of a shell company or an LLC. Well, that was interesting news to all of us. Everybody on this council got that email. Generally, I let these things go, but that one was a new low. So I thought I would just share that. You know, I believe most everyone involved in this, if they had to do it all over again, it would have been handled differently. You know, perhaps Dr. Edmonds and her partner would have knocked on doors on Knowles Street and other nearby areas to alert the neighbors that they were considering purchasing the property to build a veterinary clinic and ask them what their opinion is before they entered into a sales agreement. You know, that could have started some amicable talks between the applicant and the neighbors, or maybe stopped the whole thing in its tracks before it got going and before it went to the Planning Commission. But Dr. Edmonds and Dr. Alston thought they were doing the right thing when they did go to the neighbors, even though their plans had pretty well been established at that point. Maybe the applicant would have better understood at that point, certainly had she knocked on a bunch of doors ahead of time, the kind of uphill battle that she would find herself facing in trying to get this residential parcel rezoned for commercial use. I've spoken with Father Shields, and he's said that he really, truly regrets the tension that this rezoning has caused in the neighborhood and within the church. Nobody had any inkling of the kind of pushback that would unfold. I can understand why they thought this would happen, why it might be a good idea given how long this property's been for sale and that there's commercial property nearby. You've already heard that from our speakers. There is commercial property nearby. And at the time, I'm sure it was a good idea, or it seemed like it would be a good idea and probably something that would be doable. I had the same idea when I first heard about it. You know, a veterinary clinic is low impact. It's a buffer business. And looking just west across from the proposed site on Spring Hill Avenue and on McGregor Avenue, there are parcels with an up zone of B2. That's true. Knowing what they do now, though, perhaps the church would have handled things differently. We have heard an earful from people about how the sale was handled. But that is strictly church business. It is not the city's business. I figure if they had it all to do over again, I think the applicant might have ahead of time offered the conditions that she's talked about, or the concessions that we have talked about in some of these meetings following the public hearing. And some of those included not even having outdoor kennels, moving the clinic even to the western side of that parcel, and then agreeing to limit future use of the other parcel. Those are all things that were talked about that I believe she was willing to do. Prior to our public hearing, which now I can't even remember how many weeks ago that was, it seems like it's been forever because we've been at this for many months, there were a multitude of meetings. And it is quite normal procedure for an applicant or developer to meet with a council member of that district to provide information about the plans they have for this development, especially if it entails rezoning. So I met with the applicant and her team to go over these plans. My first question was, have you spoken to the neighbors yet? They said they had met with the Knowles Street neighbors since they are the closest to the proposed site, and they felt it was a productive meeting, but there was some opposition. So I suggested they meet again with the neighbors to try to work through those objections. Before, however, this meeting could be held, I heard from Ms. Barbara Knowles Smith, who's the president of the Sandtown Community Action Group, that they preferred to meet with me first before they got back with the neighbors. So I met with them, and that was primarily a meeting to provide information on the council's process, you know, how rezonings are done, how that all comes about, and also to answer some very limited questions about the proposed plans because, you know, I am not the applicant and I wasn't as well suited to answer those questions as her team was. But I encouraged members at that meeting to meet again with the applicant to request conditions or concessions since the Planning Commission at that point had already recommended approval. And if the council should pass this rezoning, then the neighbors would want to get as much benefit as possible for the neighborhood. After that, I attended a meeting of the Sandtown Community Action Group where the applicant and her team presented information, and then one at St. Ignatius for parishioners to get information on the sale of the property. I didn't speak at either meeting, I just listened. Unfortunately, at both these meetings, emotions ran high, very high, and it was difficult for anyone who was there trying to get answers to get those answers. You know, weeks ago, during our public hearing, and you've already heard about this, you already know, the applicant and her team and supporters and those in opposition had their chance to provide us with arguments on the other side. Ms. Smith at the time agreed that she would be willing to work toward a compromise. So, speaking for my colleagues here, and I think you've heard them all say, that they were all hopeful that a compromise could be reached. And that today we would be looking at some sort of a compromise rather than looking at voting it up or down on just the merits, the way it came to us from the Planning Commission. Council members all know how important it is when we have these land use issues or disputes for neighbors and developers to work together, to try to work together to get the best possible outcomes. It's very difficult to do, emotionally charged, just like this one has been, because rezonings, especially in these residential areas, really do change the neighborhood. But as you've also heard, I facilitated a small meeting of the opponents who represented the various sides of the area to meet with the applicant. I attended the first meeting. After that, opponents met on their own and agreed to work through a list of conditions that they could request of the applicant. They have met for several weeks, making time in between their work responsibilities, family responsibilities, and Halloween. And I just want to thank everyone who participated. I know you were and you are opposed to the rezoning, but you agreed to discuss with open minds a way to work toward compromise. I also, again, want to thank Dr. Mary Edmonds and Dr. Mandy Alston for their willingness to make concessions and restrictions and to meet with the opponents either in person or speak with them on the phone. They were always willing and open. They've been very gracious and vocal about that. The people who were working on this, the opponents and the applicants, all tried. I believe everyone really did try to, do what we asked them to do. This whole process has been difficult, I think, for everyone involved. And when I learned yesterday that no compromise has been reached, I was disappointed. I was disheartened as well. But I know it wasn't for lack of trying, so I thank you all again for doing that. Prior to the public hearing, which again has been weeks ago, I had a meeting with Dr. Edmonds and told her that if we had to vote that day, that I believed that the rezoning would fail. So I told her that she had some options. One was to let the proposal fail. She could withdraw, or the last one was to try to work out a compromise. There are other options. She could withdraw and come back at a later date. She could take it to court. There are several things that could happen. But Dr. Edmonds opted for the compromise. I think that the neighbors who met over these last weeks understand that there may be other attempts at purchasing and rezoning this property. But whether to sell the property is, of course, up to St. Ignatius. Mr. Daves and Mrs. Rich already told you about the example on Airport where the new CVS went up. Very little, if any, buffers. The neighbors all have to look at it. They fought. We denied it, but the circuit court came in and the drugstore won. I did urge the neighbors that live around this parcel to look at making the best out of the situation to better protect themselves going forward. Look toward the future, what could happen. There are a lot of what ifs. What if nothing happened? That's probably what everybody would prefer, but you just don't know. At the end of the day, this property is zoned for residential. Everybody knew that going in. While the two daughters have jumped through all their hoops, they've done their part to make the rezoning the least impactful it can be. 100% of the neighbors who live closest to the site are opposed. And a good number of those who live in back of the site and across from the site are also opposed. I am aware that people who back up to the property and live within the neighborhoods do support. I'm also aware that a lot of people are fairly neutral and don't much care one way or the other how this goes. But I have to listen closest to the people who are most impacted by the proposal and give them deference. Yesterday, I called Mary and Mandy and told them that because of the lack of a compromise and because I felt I had to listen to those neighbors and give them the most deference, that I told them I would have to vote in opposition to the rezoning. They were frustrated, they were disheartened, very disappointed, and I understand that. This morning I spoke with Father Shields to let him know how I was going to vote. He already knew. Word spreads. But I believe he understands my reasoning, and in many ways I believe he's relieved to get this matter settled one way or the other. He has heard from a number of parishioners, so many of them who were upset about the rezoning. But again, this was something that he, or I think any of the officials or the leaders within St. Ignatius ever dreamed would cause this kind of tension, this kind of upset, either in the neighborhood or in the church. I believe that Father Shields wants to work toward healing all of his wounds, and I believe you all do too, because it's your church for so many of you. And I really appreciate Father Shields being very candid with me about that. Again, I just thank everybody. I'm sorry this was such a long, drawn-out process, but I thought it was very important that everybody be allowed to take the time they needed to try to work through a compromise, to work with the applicant, to work with the neighbors, to get the best thing possible. But again, at the end of the day, we have to listen to those who live closest to the proposed site and give them deference. And so with that, again, I'll have to vote against the rezoning.
Any further comments? Discussion period is over. The motion is to approve. All in favor, let me know by the sign of aye. All in opposition? No.
No.
Item failed.
Ordinance 88040, ordinance deeming property at Ziegler and Cody Roads not now needed for public or municipal purposes and authorizing the sale to the Mobile County Communications District.
So moved. Second.
Everybody moved in second, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Consent resolution is held over. 40697, declare the structure at 374 Dunbar Street a public nuisance and order it demolished.
Move to table.
Second.
Probably moved in second, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
40913, declare the structure at 52 Stanton Road a public nuisance and order it partially secured / demolished.
So move.
Second.
Probably moved in second, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
371004, recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a retail beer table wine off-premises only license for Speed 3 on Dolphin Island Parkway.
So second.
Probably moved in second, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
CIP resolutions held over. 211011, authorized contract H&H Electric Company for Medal of Honor Park football field lighting upgrades.
So moved. Second.
Probably moved in second, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Resolutions held over. 219915, authorized contract amendment with Clark Gear Latham and Associates for master service agreement for optimal right-of-way permit application reviews.
Move to table.
Second.
Probably moved in second, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
01964, authorized non-exclusive lease agreement with Coast Ducks for use of boat ramp near Convention Center.
So moved.
I thought we motioned, I thought we were going to
No,
table
that,
that.
no, not.
No, this is the ramp.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'm sorry.
And if the record could reflect that, I want to sponsor this as well, Madam City Clerk.
Okay.
Been properly moved to second, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
01965, authorized sublease agreement with Gulf Coast Ducks for space in 650 St. Anthony Street.
The table.
Second.
Properly moved and second, any discussion?
I just have a question
Ms.
on this. Since the city is planning on finding another space for the, for our floats, is that an understanding that there is a space available somewhere? Or is there a thought that we would get rid of the city's floats? Is that even on the table?
I don't have that information for you. That would probably be somebody in real estate or, but either one of those options is still on the table. And Mr. Anderson was just saying we do have a prospective location floats. So we wouldn't have done this without knowing that.
Okay, then there is another location secured. Okay, thank you. I'd just like to know that. Thank you. That's it.
Any further discussion? None, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
081012, approved purchase order to Cowan Equipment to replace damaged cab on Barco Loader. 211013, authorized contract with Weiss Janey Elstner Associates for an exterior and mechanical assessment at the Sanger Theater. 211014, authorized contract with Barton Associates for Lab People's Stadium Stroll Repairs Phase 2.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second, any discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Consent resolutions has been introduced, 081015 through 581028.
Yeah, motion to suspend the rule for immediate consideration of consent resolutions 08-1015 through 58-1028.
Second.
Properly moved and second, any discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
081015, approved bid from Bliss Products and Services Engineered Playground Mulch. 081016, approved purchase order, diesel fuel. 081016, approved item-based bid, Fusax Tire Center for oil change, tire rotation, and balancing and vehicle inspections. 091018, transfer monies from District 2 discretionary account to Parks and Recreation Department for the 5th annual harvest giveaway. 311019, authorized grant application to the Environmental Protection Agency for the prevention of trash in 5 coastal states of the Gulf of Mexico watershed. 311020, authorized grant application, substance abuse and mental health services administration for the benefit of homeless individuals. 401021, declare the structure at 2009 Balthup Street a nuisance and order it demolished. 401022, 1023, 1024 are declaring structures at 328 Smith Street, 620 Belsall Avenue, 717 South Conception Street, public nuisances and ordering them demolished. 581026, assess costs for removal of weeds. 581027 and 1028 are assessing costs for removal of weeds and authorized removal of weeds.
So move.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? I just want to make a remark relative to the discretionary transfer for the harvest giveaway, and want to publicly thank Ms. Betty Jean Schutz Harris of District 2, who has worked with me, who organized this effort, started it at St. Peter Baptist Church, and now it's held at the community center. Hundreds of individuals came to this harvest giveaway. There were families who got their whole Christmas because of the generous donations of those who live in our community. Each one helping somebody. So I want to thank her and Mr. Ralph Gordon with the Parks and Rec Department who stayed over that evening, came early that morning, that's last Saturday morning, to make this 6th annual harvest giveaway the great success that it is and it always has been. Now, I don't necessarily like expending $520 in order to have a giveaway for the community. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to work with the administration so that items of this nature will be a rarity on our agenda, because it was a giveaway. And now it's $520. But I'm going to support this today. And it was a great way. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Items passed.
40-1025, declare the structure at 308 Fifth Avenue a public nuisance and order it demolished.
Move to hold over 30 days.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
CI resolutions being introduced, 21-1029 through 21-1031.
These resolutions will be laid over 1 week by council rules.
Resolutions being introduced the first time, 01-1032 through 46-1039.
These resolutions also will be laid over 1 week by council rules.
Announcements.
Vice President Small.
Thank you, Vice President Manzi. Next week, I will be making some important announcements that's coming up in the district. We know that the holiday season is upon us, and those announcements will be made on next week for different events that's going on in District 3. Thank you, Vice President Manzi.
Councilwoman Gregory.
Thank you, Mr. Appreciate that. Just a few things coming up. Speaking of Christmas, I have my annual Christmas meeting for the district December 9th at the Mobile Museum of Art. We will have Russo's Catering. We are also going to debut some holiday popsicles from Frios. If you are familiar with Frios, they're a local company and now they've gone nationwide, which is really very exciting. But they've got some new holiday flavors, so we'll have those. We'll also have some entertainment from the Mary B. Austin Quan, Orchard Elementary Choir, as well as a jazz band from Magnet School. As always, we'll be inviting a member of police, fire, and public works groups to join us and recognize them along with neighborhood groups. They, postcards or letters with all of the information will soon be going out so that everybody can put that on their calendar. Again, that's December 9th at the Mobile Museum of Art. And this year, something a little different as well. We'll be asking residents to bring gifts for St. Mary's Home. Over the years, we have provided gifts for children at Wilmer Hall, but we've decided to spread the wealth around, as it were, and this year, the gifts will be going to St. Mary's Home. Also, if you drive down Ziegler Boulevard, very often have no doubt seen a lot of heavy equipment on the right-of-way area. These are more preparations to get ready for the eventual construction that you will see on Ziegler to widen Ziegler Boulevard. And next Tuesday, 1 o'clock, next Tuesday afternoon, we will have a committee meeting. It's an ad hoc committee meeting talking about municipal judges' salaries as well as their caseloads. December 8th, I know I'm kind of going backwards here, but December 8th is Christmas on the Hill. It's from 1 until 5. Everyone's invited to come out. I know like Christmas is far away, but it is right around the corner. And then this weekend is the Christmas Jubilee that the Junior League puts on every year. Friday, we are ready to come cut the ribbon before shopping begins, and I'll be there for that. And then Saturday evening for Girls' Night Out, I'll be joining a host of other ladies and modeling some of the clothing that is for sale during the Christmas Jubilee. So that ought to be entertaining. With that, I think that is plenty from me, Mr. President. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Davis?
Thank you, Mr. President. There will also be a meeting. Hopefully, it will be the final meeting of the Special Act Committee directed by our council president to come up with an ordinance having to do with the sale of a real property owned by the city of Mobile. That will be 2 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon in the council chambers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mrs. Rich?
Oh, thank you very much. I wanted to just thank everyone who was responsible for the Veterans Day luncheon, which I attended, and It was very well attended, as it always is. There are council members joining me as well. But again, everyone who put together, thank you for your time and efforts. And it was really a great occasion. I had mentioned about having a district meeting in December. I think December is a packed time of year, so I'm now looking at January, the second or third week in January, working with the Senior Center, Connie Hudson Senior Center, for a location, and the topic will be public safety. I'll get more details out as that gets closer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Richardson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to, before I give my announcement, I would like to ask Director Barber whether or not, well, let me just say, first of all, and the member of the chamber came to our pre-council meeting this morning, and at the pre-council meeting returned back to her car to find a boot on the car. And I just can't remember the council giving any organization authority to place boots on the cars. Do you know anything about that, Chief?
No, sir, I do not know about this particular incident. We'll have to look into it.
Oh, no, not about this one, but I'm talking about in general. I know about tickets. If you stay too long, you get a ticket. But to go as far as to restrain our citizens by way of a boot, I think you would need authority from the council to do that. Do you know, did you tell any group to do that? I mean,
No, sir, that's a private company that's doing it. It's not a city entity. I do believe that Councilman Manzi at one point proposed an ordinance forbidding the use of boots, but I don't think it ever made it to committee or in front of the council.
I don't think they can, to restrain a citizen, I think that's just like an arrest. I think they need authority to do it. I don't think they need authority to, nobody to stop them. I don't think they have the authority to do that. I don't think they have no authority to do that. You know, to write a ticket, to put a boot on somebody's car.
You can do what you want to on your private property.
I think this is where it's at.
Was-
I think
was
that
it on
was why
private
we
property?
didn't move forward, if I remember correctly.
Right.
I have to check on that, but certainly I don't want them in the public putting no boot on nobody's car. But anyway, I just want to say that. I want to show off a plaque that I received from the Stars of the Industry Awards group. It's made up of the Alabama Restaurants and Hospitality Association. Annually, they've been doing this for 21 years. Annually, they come together and they pick out individuals and organizations that contribute toward the Hospitality Association. In other words, if we fill up restaurants and fill up hotels with what we do, then we can be nominated for an award. So I went up, and I would like to thank our council president. Councilman Manzi was there. President Manzi traveled all the way to Montgomery to be with me in this, and I was going for the number one. They got various categories. The category I was competing in was Tourism Promoter of the Year award. So let me say, first of all, that I was nominated by David Clark with Visit Mobile and Sean Trent with City Mobile, Keisha Davis with Spire, Kent Blackiston with Riverview Plaza, and Margot Gilbert with the Bell House Hotel. I had no idea that I was being nominated for this. So we went up with a packed out house. Lo and behold, we had two groups to tie up to beat me out. Lulu's. You know, I was nominated because of the moon pie drop. That's a once a year event. Lulu's open every night. Man, I didn't think I ought to be trying to compete with no Lulu's. Anyway, the other one was the Orange Beach Gulf Shores Tourism Organization. They work on tourism every day. I said, what is this? Why am I competing with these big? But anyway, I made the finalists. I was in the finalists. Hundreds of people were nominated, but I thought it was an honor to be nominated to be in the finalists, and hopefully, if I have another try next year, I'll do better. But it was an opportunity to promote Mobile. It was an opportunity to talk about what we will be doing here on New Year's Eve, and in that vein, because we haven't said anything that much about this. The Moon Pie Drop started in 2007, and we're going to be, I think, it's either 12th or 13th year this year in the Central Time Zone. We have preempted all other cities. There's nothing in the Central Time Zone on New Year's Eve night bigger than the Moon Pie Drop. So we are gearing up this year for an outstanding event starting at 8 o'clock. The food trucks will be in Bienva Square at 8:30. The mayor and I would come on the stage, and we're going to cut the world's largest edible moon pie. And we have had thousands of people in that group waiting on this, a live band playing, and we're going to cut it within 20 minutes. There would be not one piece of that moon pie left up there. They would eat it all up. And then at 8:30, we're going to leave there with a second line parade from the Riverview Plaza to the main stage. It will be led by the Port City second liners. And people are going to have the umbrellas up. It's going to be a Mardi Gras style parade in the middle of the streets. It's going to be on. We're going over to the main stage where the mayor and I would come on the stage, and we're going to address the citizens, welcome everybody to the Moon Pie Drop, and then those supporters will be thanked for coming. And then we're going to have an initial group to open up the entertainment. That hasn't been announced. But at 11 o'clock, the headliner will take the stage, and it's going to be Collective Soul. This is a rock band that was selected this year. I've gone on iTunes to listen to them. They got many hits. They are well followed. They are well traveled, and they're going to take to the stage at 11 o'clock, and then at 12 o'clock would be the countdown. Laser light show is going to be on downtown, and we're going to have a monstrous fireworks. We intend to preempt almost every city in the nation with our tremendous fireworks, and then the new year will come in. Let me close out by saying, at first, we depended on our entertainment to draw people to the Moon Pie Drop. We started off with 15,000 people the first year. We moved out of Cooper Park. The next year we had 30,000, and the group has been getting larger and larger ever since that. Today we have made a name for ourselves. People come from Australia, from all over Europe. They come from far and near. They are not here because of who is going to be on the stage. They're here because of the event itself. If I was going to New York to the ball drop, I wouldn't be trying to find out who is on the stage in New York. I'm going to the ball drop. I want to be there at 12 o'clock when that ball drop. The people come from far and near because when 12 o'clock comes, they want to be standing in place when that moon pie come down. And that's why they come. But none of this is going to cost anybody anything. We're going to have free transportation. You don't have to worry about getting nothing here. We're going to tell you to park at the mall, wherever you want to park your car. The bus is going to pick you up, drop you off. We'll be running to 1:30. Be there. That's it.
Half an hour later, that's it. Councilman Richardson on that award, and I also want to state for the record that all of that activity, vitality, entertainment is in District 2. You won't find it in District 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. That's right, but it's in the heart of District 2. And I look forward to participating to the degree that I can on New Year's Eve. I want to I've lost my train of thought. It's been a long meeting. I'll say it next week. No, I know what it was. My Christmas function, it will be held on December the 12th. December the 12th at the VIA Center. And we want to invite all of the community leaders out. We will also be honoring our first responders who've done a great job throughout the year, and we'll be coordinating that effort through our public safety director and our fire chief and also our police chief. It's a great time where all neighborhoods across the district. I have the privilege of representing the most diverse district, and it's one time where all of us can get together, look back over the year, and really be grateful and thankful for all of the accomplishments and just for making it to see that point in this year. So that will be on that particular day at the VIA Center. I want to thank all of our staffs, the city clerk, our assistant city clerk, Ms. Lana, Ms. Deidre, coordinator upstairs. They do an outstanding job. We really say this every week. We really repeat this every week. We don't say it enough, and we want that reflected in the records that on behalf of this council, we are appreciative of all that you all do to make our jobs easier. Now, everyone would assume that all we do is sit behind this dais and talk and say aye and nay and dodge interviews from the media. That is not what we do. These are serious positions, and we are helped greatly by this staff here. We really are. And so that concludes my announcements.
Mr. President.
Mr. Daves?
I know this was unintentional.
Did I leave somebody out?
No,
Oh,
you
okay.
didn't leave anybody out.
All right.
But you made a misstatement.
I'm sorry. Correct
You
me.
said that District 2 was the most diverse, and that's simply not the case. Districts 5 and 7 are the most diverse districts.
That's not the case either.
It absolutely is.
Say it again.
No way in the world.
Tell the truth to stay in the church.
No, ma'am. Well, I will accept that. I guess that correction, and we just represent whoever's in our districts. How about that? And do the best that we can. I saw the hand of Good Shepherd. I'm gonna. No. It's lunchtime. We're going to get you next week, Good Shepherd.
Move to adjourn.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.